Hello, I'm Deanna Cooney. Welcome to this week's episode of Undercurrent. In our first story for this week, Bass visits the Innovate Australia Summit to find out the future of hydrogen power and renewable energy.
Well, hydrogen fuel is one of the emerging new technology fuels, and I think it has the potential to really revolutionise how we do transport here in Australia.
Hydrogen, at the moment, hydrogen tends to be produced and used locally, but we see it as an opportunity to piggyback on to what we've already done very well in Western Australia in particular, but Australia more broadly, in that we have a fantastic natural gas industry. And natural gas can be a conduit for hydrogen to be exported to customers that we already have and that are already asking. So Japan and Korea, for example, they are asking for hydrogen, and being able to export that to countries that need it, that don't have the same sort of facilities, land, infrastructure that we have.
Okay, so there are numerous benefits. Okay, yeah, but especially it's a totally clean fuel, so it's CO2 free. So only thing that comes out from tailpipe is pure water.
We would see that as you move towards more of a hydrogen economy, you're not going to stop the idea of electric cars. So the idea that you'll have electric cars, you might have some hydrogen cars, but trucking is probably the area in Australia, especially in Australia, where we can show how hydrogen can be used for a cleaner environment, instantly cleaner environment.
With hydrogen, only 100 kilograms of hydrogen can drive big truck actually of let's say 1,300 kilometers. So that's a long distance.
But in order to create a larger sort of scale and a market for it, even for us to use, we probably need to be thinking about long-term and big opportunities, and that comes from having an integrated market, an integrated global market, and it will take time. And just like electric vehicles, things take time.
And a number of the things we're looking at today is really having a look at the opportunities for electric cars, for batteries, battery storage, and also for alternative fuels like hydrogen.
There are different ways to store hydrogen, but no, not really. And they're very innovative ways. There's CSIRO in Australia that developed. Dr. Michael Dolan, he developed with his team a membrane that you can convert hydrogen to ammonia, and then you can transport ammonia very easily.
A number of times in the past, countries have tried to do the hydrogen economy. They've tried to imagine what the hydrogen economy might look like. And the technologies over the last number of decades have been slowly maturing, and they are there now. They're not quite there for export, but they're certainly there to be able to do something now. So there's an opportunity now.
A lot of countries do have it. They do have special incentives actually to encourage to purchase of zero emission or near zero emission vehicles.
And we see things like in Europe the Hydrogen Council, which has many of the energy companies that have previously been doing oil, then gas. They'll be moving to other alternative fuels, and hydrogen's a real possibility for some of those companies, and they've put aside $10 billion to do that. But technology does happen in that way. It sort of comes in fits and spurts, and then people forget when it's absolutely adopted that it's been a 30-year journey. So, and I suspect this is the same thing. It's been spoken about, looked at, and now the technology is there.
A lot of the big companies are looking for future markets, and if the future markets are in renewables, of course they're looking at those areas, but I think they're also important because a lot of them have the money for infrastructure that's needed to implement these new technologies, so they will be an important part of that future.
And in our next story, Alex meets up with Rafael Barro, the director of the Independent Latino Film Festival, to find out what the festival's all about and what it has to offer.
I'm Alex. Tonight we're going to be talking to Rafael Barro, the festival director for the Latin American Film Festival. We'll be finding out what the festival is and how it celebrates Latin American culture in WA. What is the Latin American Film Festival?
Look, Perth Independent Latino Film Festival is a festival organized by a non-for-profit organization called Cine Vivo. This festival It started 7 years ago in the garage of my house, and after having such a great connection with the community, with different communities in town, interested in Latin America, we decided creating a non-for-profit organization, start to run in year basis, every year, a film festival where you could experience different aspects of our culture, So each time we screen a film, normally we open door at 6:30. There is Latin food available, any specific live music performance prepared for this event, a short film, a long film, visual arts, times to times there is a Q&A session with directors. So we try to experience the culture in different senses, through all the senses, and to share in community, celebrate, diversity. That's our point.
Are there any sort of themes to each night?
Yes. Each year, each night, there is a different country that we present in a way, with the food from that country, music for that country, films from there. But this year we decided embracing a very special theme that we believe is going to be our theme for the future as well. It's about human rights and migration, including migration crisis as well, given the situation that we live in the world nowadays, here in Perth, here in Australia, but as well around the whole world, in Latin America. This migration crisis, being the biggest since the Second World War, has been, something that we couldn't not to pay attention to it, and to develop and curate a program where we could reflect about this as a community.
How much longer is left of the festival?
Yes, we will go till the 8th of December. Our next event is on Friday, 30th of November. We'll have a short film competition. We have received more than 100 films all over the world. More than 20 countries around the world have submitted to our call for our short film competition, focus in human rights and migration crisis. So on Friday here we will have at 6:30, we will screen the selection and the audience will vote. The following day, the 1st of December, we have a very special Cuban night. It's a Cuban party at Northbridge, the rooftop. That would be an awesome night as well. Then we have the closing party, which is the 8th of December, Saturday, at the community cinemas in Worthwood in Victoria Park. Which will be a beautiful venue by the river, in the sunset, outdoors. There will be a tribute to one of the major salsa singers ever in the history. His name is Rubén Blades. This film was released this year, and we want to pay a tribute to him. We hope all the dancers around the town come to enjoy this evening, because there will be music and dance as well, of course. Before the screenings, while you are having a glass of wine, a conversation with a friend, or tasting some Latin food, having the chance to listen to good music performances, from this country as well, just before the movie. So it has been awesome, this.
And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, and feel very welcome to the festival. And through you, I would like to invite all the audience as well to come to see how special and different it is when you have a film festival that combines, an art curation and a community-centered event together. Thank you so much.
And this has been Alex from Undercurrent.
Statistics across Australia show that 1 woman per week is killed by her domestic partner. On this week's Vox Pop, Miranda asked the people of Perth what their thoughts are on this incredibly high rate of domestic violence and what we can do about it.
Ping Ban, a 69-year-old Singaporean businessman, was found guilty for beating his ex-wife to death and dumping her body in Perth's Swan River. According to the Australian Institute of Criminology, 1 woman dies almost every week at the hands of a current or former partner. It is time we have this conversation in Perth about why domestic violence is still occurring in the homes of many. Today I'll be heading into the streets of Perth to discuss this issue and find out what WA has to say. What do you think this extreme level of domestic violence is still occurring?
I'm not sure. I think there's probably a lot of lack of education about domestic violence and the role that men play, I guess, in perpetrating a lot of it, and, understanding what kind of impact it has on families and community.
I think it is because we live in such a patriarchal society worldwide. It's just accepted that violence against women is okay. It's just happening so much around us all the time that it's become the norm, and now we're trying to fight against that. I guess there's been more publicity around standing up and not accepting it, but I think we've got a long way to go. So I think it's just become normal since time began that violence against women was acceptable.
Yeah, there's lots of cultural issues with that, I imagine, but fundamentally why it comes down to violence, why does one person hurt another person, and that comes down to the individual. They're in a dark place themselves. They're probably not very empathetic towards themselves, and so they can't be towards other people. And some people keep that at below the behavioural level, but for other people it starts to act out and they start hurting other people.
As far as domestic violence goes, I think it's just not addressed properly. It's a cultural issue. If it's condemned hard enough and properly, people will stop doing it, but it seems to be accepted and as a part of life and swept under the carpet.
Do you think that cultural differences have something to do with why that happened as well? Because in some countries it's normalized, it's a normal thing, it's not really a big issue, but then when you come here it's not something that's tolerated as much, but it does still happen. So do you think that cultural differences had something to do with that as well?
Yes, I think there's probably a good chance of that in this case. Yeah.
Why do you think that some women are quiet about it? Some people may think that they're quiet about it, or, why didn't they ask for help or something like that? Why do you think that there's a silence amongst it?
I would say it's embarrassing for them. They have to admit that there's problems in their relationship, and they also think not enough of themselves to speak up, or they're protecting their children. They don't want to leave because of their children.
I think it can be really difficult, particularly when you're in a relationship with someone who you think that you know or you trust or you love. I guess it can be really difficult to kind of go out and talk about it. It's probably also difficult in terms of a safety perspective. You might be worried that, if you go and tell someone, the perpetrator might actually come back and do something worse to you.
How do you think the conversation can be improved on spreading awareness about domestic violence?
We just have to talk about it. It's not talked about enough. Things pop up on the news and they go away, but there's not a continuing conversation on how to address this.
It's a good question. I guess a lot of it, I think, has to do with empowering men and engaging men to actually understand how domestic violence has started and how they are really part of the solution, I think.
This has been Miranda for Undercurrent.